On November 22nd, 1963, the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was assassinated at 12:30 in the afternoon while riding in a presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. The implications of his very public murder at the hands of a former U.S. Marine, Lee Harvey Oswald, shook the world, and the era of the early 1960s, as well as the legacy of the Kennedy assassination, was defined by the Grassy Knoll versus the Lone Gunman. But since then, you may have heard quite a few more conspiracy theories surrounding the matter, to say the least. Decades of investigations, public documents, records, and interviews have failed to satisfy conspiracy theorists, and for them, the question has always remained unanswered. What really happened to the US president, and did Lee Harvey Oswald act alone in the assassination? Wow. Let's see what we can find out. Hello internet, what's going on? And once again, welcome back to the most inquisitive channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions. As per usual, I'll be your disembodied floating voice, Jack Finch, as today we curiously ask the question, what really happened to JFK? Roll the clip.
Car breaks. The sixth and fatal shot, frame 313, takes Kennedy in the head from the front. This is the key shot.
For the curious amongst you, that clip was from 1991's JFK, starring Kevin Costner and directed by Oliver Stone, which visually examines the events leading up to Kennedy's assassination and attempts to pick apart the alleged cover-up through the eyes of the former New Orleans District Attorney, Jim Garrison, who was a very real person who filed very real charges against the alleged participants of a conspiracy to assassinate the president, even after the lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, was found responsible by the notorious Warren Commission. It's an interesting perspective, albeit one that was entrenched in controversy and still partly is to this day. So what exactly happened? What were the events that led up to Kennedy's assassination? Well, first we have to take a look at who he was as both a person and as a president. John F. Kennedy was an incredibly progressive member of the Democrat Party, and many of his stances on policies, both foreign and domestic, have been fuel for the conspiracy theories often associated with his death. For the most part, it was thought that JFK had realized the futility of the war in Vietnam and claimed on several occasions that his intention was to withdraw all US presidents from the field of battle, much to the dismay of his political opposition as well as his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson. Here's where we hear our first major conspiracy theory, the military-industrial complex, and one of the main proponents to the motivations of his assassination. And of course, it involves the Vietnam War. Although the notion is that Kennedy was trying to pull all American troops out of Vietnam, was allegedly opposed by the military-industrial complex in doing so, the fact of the matter actually is that Kennedy's administration had no official obvious intention of withdrawing the military from the Vietnam War, and instead had committed more military administrators to resolve the situation democratically rather than in combat, as the war was at an impossible impasse and a demonstration of a needless loss of life. In fact, at the time of Kennedy's death, no final policy decision had been made as to Vietnam, which makes the motivations for an assassination by the military-industrial complex murky at best. In actuality, JFK's successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, had a much worse problem on his hands following Kennedy's death. In fact, you could even argue that Kennedy's administration already had the upper hand, that is, unless somebody wanted to make things worse rather than better. It's food for thought. The military-industrial complex aren't the only targets of conspiracy theorists though, and it's a long list that includes the FBI, the CIA, the Mafia, even the KGB, and one of the main alleged conspirators is Kennedy's successor, the previously mentioned Lyndon B. Johnson, the man who would take up the mantle of president following his assassination. Now, it's also interesting then that Johnson appointed the specially tasked panel, the Warren Commission, handpicking its members to officially investigate Kennedy's death. Now, as the Warren Commission publicly determined, following an exhaustive, nearly a year-long investigation, the assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, allegedly acted alone. But there is a very real and clear skepticism to this conclusion, and not from conspiracy theorists, but from members of the Warren Commission themselves. 4 out of the 7 members, Richard Russell, John Sherman Cooper, Hale Boggs, and John McCloy, all publicly expressed their doubts regarding the conclusions of the commission. Their main gripe being that both the president and another passenger of the motorcade, Governor of Texas John Connally, were both hit by one single bullet. This magic bullet, to excuse a metaphor, is the smoking gun of conspiracy theorists, and for some, it's definitive proof that Oswald hadn't acted alone, but was instead part of a larger team of shooters, which some claim to be as many as 6. Despite being seriously wounded, suffering 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a shattered wrist, and a bullet lodged in his leg, Connally survived. In his testimony before the Warren Commission, Connolly stated there were either 2 or 3 people involved in this, or more, that or someone was shooting with an automatic rifle. So then, why would the Warren Commission determine that Oswald acted alone and only fired 3 bullets, a single one of which managed to hit the president and also grievously wound John Connolly at both his ribs, leg, and wrist? That's an interesting notion, isn't it? In fact, if the leading conclusion of the Warren Commission is to be taken as fact, then it posits that a single bullet caused all of the wounds to both the governor and the non-fatal wounds to the president, which were allegedly left to the fatal final 2 shots. If that was the case, the single bullet would total 7 entry and exit wounds in both men. Yeah, something doesn't quite add up there, right? The Warren Commission's ultimate conclusion states that a single 1.5-inch bullet fired from a relatively short-range rifle from the 6th floor of a building somehow passed through President Kennedy's neck and then went into Governor Connolly's chest, while at the same time also hitting his wrist and then finally embedding itself in the governor's thigh. Now, if that was the case, that single bullet would have had to have penetrated a combined 15 layers of clothing, 7 layers of skin, and 15 inches of muscle tissue, while also hitting a necktie knot, removing 4 inches of Connolly's rib, and then finally shattering his radius bone. I don't know about you, but that sounds like one hell of a trick shot to me. Oh, also, did I mention that they found that magic bullet conveniently on a gurney in a hospital, and when it was given as evidence as part of the Warren Commission, strangely enough, it barely had a dent in it. Now, the fact of the matter remains, we may never know what really happened to JFK, and many of the conspiracy theories that revolve around his assassination have been caught up in an echo chamber that has echoed on for literally over 50 years. While it's highly unlikely that the president was killed by a rival political cabal, the mafia, the FBI, or the KGB, it's interesting to note that there are certain discrepancies in the Warren Commission's final report, some that are glaringly inconsistent and others that are such wild leaps that it's hard not to imagine a logical alternative. It is possible that the truth may never be revealed, and still now there are certain portions of the Warren report that won't be publicly available until sometime in 2021. Perhaps then we will be delivered with more facts concluded by the Commission that we can apply to the already clear discrepancies. Maybe they will patch over some of the Warren Commission's shortcomings, or maybe they'll give us more reason to doubt their final conclusion. But until that time, only speculation remains. Well, what do you guys think? I've got an inkling that this one may be a bit of a hot topic, so why don't you let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you've been a fan of this video, then please be sure to check out all of our questioning playlists so you can slip down the hypothetical rabbit hole that is Life's Biggest Questions. If you were also a fan of this particular video, please be a dear and hit that thumbs up button as well as that subscribe bell, and we'll be seeing you in the next one. As per usual, I've been your disembodied floating voice, Jack Finch. You've been watching Life's Biggest Questions, and until next time, you take it easy.